Ladders. Everyone uses them. After all, they're hardly the most sophisticated piece of equipment, and for that, they don't require a lot of training, typically. But this is why they can be dangerous. Something so simple, so common, can create a false sense of security that, in turn, leads to carelessness and a potentially tragic mistake. Ladder safety really comes down to addressing the 4 most common reasons why accidents occur. First is using the wrong ladder, one that's not designed for the job at hand. So in this video, we'll cover ladder selection. Second is using a ladder that is in poor condition, which is why we'll also look at proper ladder inspection and maintenance. A third reason is using the ladder incorrectly. We'll spend a few minutes going over the bookend best practices involved with setting up your ladder to start and storing it when finished. And finally, the fourth, and perhaps most common reason for accidents on ladders is when users fail to understand or respect their limitations on a ladder. With that, we'll wrap up with a look at proper ladder use from the moment you step on that first rung. Before you tackle a job, and, for that matter, even before you start rummaging for a ladder, assess the conditions of the workspace. Look at the base that will be under your ladder's feet, and the height you need to reach. Then, take into account your own body weight, plus that of anything you'll be carrying. With all that in mind, start your search by determining the right type of ladder. If you're going to be working relatively close to the ground, consider an A-frame step ladder. They provide the best stability because they open to create a broad, 4-legged base. Although you'll need to make sure you're setting your A-frame on a flat surface. Otherwise, it's not balanced enough to maintain that stability. For jobs of greater height, or if your base doesn't allow for a fully opened and stable A-frame, you'll need a straight or extension ladder. Again, though both feet need to rest on a level surface to maintain balance. We'll go into more detail in a few minutes when we cover how to safely set up your ladder. But first, a side note about another type of ladder, the stationary variety that are found on all sorts of farm buildings and machinery. While they're not portable, like your A-frame or extension ladder, many of the safety points in this video still apply. So keep that in mind going forward. Now, back to ladder selection. After you've identified the right type, make sure you use a ladder constructed of the right material. Industrial-grade ladders, most likely used on the farm, are made of metal, wood, fiberglass, or a combination of these. Quite simply, follow the manufacturer's instructions and this one basic rule. Stay with wood or fiberglass if your worksite exposes your ladder to electricity, corrosives, or flammables. Metal ladders don't mix well with these conditions. So, you think you found the ladder you're going to use. Hold up. It's time to talk ladder inspection.
Sure, for experienced workers like Know-It-All Paul, this might seem like safety overkill. But failure to inspect the ladder, without a doubt the most often ignored aspect of ladder safety, leads to thousands of accidents every year.
Start by locating the ladder's ID label, usually on the side rail. If it doesn't have a label, or if the label doesn't have an OSHA certification, take the ladder out of service. If it is OSHA certified, see if the ladder is up for the task at hand. Ladders are rated by the American National Standards Institute, or ANSI, and have various duty ratings that represent the maximum load capacity. Your weight, plus the weight of any equipment you might be wearing or items you might be holding while on the ladder, should not exceed this number. Here, you'll see the ladder size and the maximum height. For extension ladders, bear in mind the ladder should be able to extend at least 3 feet above your work height. We'll explain why shortly. Next, you'll want to examine the condition of the ladder. Let's face it, ladders are no different than any other mechanical device. They get old and wear out. So look at each rung. Make sure they're all intact, structurally sound, clean and free of corrosion or anything that could weaken them. Do the same with the side rails and all other structural components. Look for dents or bends that can weaken the ladder's ability to stand firmly upright. If your ladder uses a rope and pulley system, make sure the rope isn't frayed or dried out. Make sure the locking devices move freely and maintain the spring action and integrity to engage flush with the rungs. Then, check the feet. They should move freely, yet sit flat and secure when the ladder is placed on the ground. And on A-frame step ladders, check the spreaders, ensuring they move freely and are securely bolted to the ladder. When all is said and done, if any ladder fails to pass this inspection, mark it "Do Not Use" and take it out of service immediately. The same goes for any ladder you find where someone tried to fix it with duct tape, bale wire, or some other Band-Aid repair. Ladder repair should be done by a qualified professional and to the original specifications of the manufacturer. In the meantime, if your ladder does pass inspection, remember to keep it clean. Keep the joints lubricated and replace any worn ropes or other parts to optimize the working condition and service life. So, now you're good to go. You're at the job site with the right ladder. But, again, there are still a few more precautions you should take before you start climbing. Evaluate your ladder's points of contact. On the ground, where your ladder's feet should be placed on a solid surface, free of slick substances, soft soil, or other loose materials. And up high, where your ladder should rest evenly and firmly against the wall or other fixture. Of course, be mindful to never support your ladder against something movable, like a scaffold or cart with wheels, regardless if the wheels are locked. If your job is at a height beyond the reach of your ladder is no longer an option. It's time to use a bucket truck or some other equipment alternative. Standing a ladder on a stack of pallets or boxes, on a barrel or set of stairs, in the bed of a pickup truck, or some other makeshift alternative to gain height, is a bonehead safety hazard of epic proportion. Don't do it. Likewise, don't hang the upper rung of a ladder on a hook and climb the ladder while it dangles. We've seen that too, as have hospital emergency rooms. Once your ladder is securely placed, check the locking parts of your ladder. On an A-frame, the spreader should be fully extended into a straight line position. On an extension ladder, we're talking about the braces that engage with the rungs. In both cases, a hasty or careless setup can mean these devices don't fully engage, which can cause a collapse when you climb into position. Further, when you use an extension ladder, always keep at least 3 feet of overlap between the ladder sections and orient the ladder so the top section overlaps the bottom on the climbing side. Continuing with extension ladders. Unlike A-frames that stand on their own, extension ladders don't have a predetermined angle. Some ladders offer a guide, but many don't. So, for optimum safety, a good rule of thumb is the 4-to-1 rule. That is, for every 4 feet of height the ladder is reaching upward, set the base of the ladder another 1 foot out away from the wall or resting surface. Repeating what was mentioned earlier, extension ladders should reach an extra 3 feet above the work height. As you can see, Paul's ladder does that, but what he hasn't done is secure the top, so his ladder cannot move, or it can become unstable in some other way. Paul's not unusual. Many workers don't think of this, but it's a very important safety precaution. Especially if you're working remotely. Speaking of falling ladders, that brings up several more precautions that affect the safety of you and others around you. Don't set your ladder up in front of a doorway. And when working in a high-traffic area, barricade off a safe space around the foot of your ladder. Finally, coworker safety often involves how you store your ladder. So let's take a quick sidebar on that topic before we move on to safe ladder usage. Whether stowing a ladder away or simply inspecting a storage area, make sure your ladders are secure, clear of any moving equipment that could knock them over. Store A-frame ladders upright. and straight or extension ladders horizontally or flat. Just don't lay them flat on the floor, as this creates a trip hazard. Likewise, don't store materials on top of your ladders, as they aren't designed to function as a shelving unit. And lastly, keep your ladders in a well-ventilated area away from heat that can warp the material or connections. With that, let's return to the job site and take a look at, literally, the high point of ladder safety. How to be safe when using a ladder. Starting with the OSHA requirement that there should never be more than one person on a ladder at any given time. When climbing, be sure the rungs and your footwear are clear of mud, grease, and any other substance that can reduce your sole's grip. That right there is an accident waiting to happen. Earlier, you saw Paul carrying a bucket of tools up to the roof of a barn. We didn't mention it then because we didn't want to add to his misery, but for safety, he should not have carried that bucket while climbing. Instead, if you're in this situation, climb first, then hoist your load up separately, using a rope or some other means. We've also pointed out several times about having enough straight ladder reach to extend the top end of the ladder 3 feet above your work height. One of the reasons why is that it maximizes safety when stepping off the top of the ladder onto the roof or other platform. As you can see here, the extra ladder height allows this worker to keep both hands on the ladder and his weight over the work surface as he steps carefully off onto the roof. And that's precisely what the top rungs of the ladder are for. They're not for climbing. As a rule, never climb higher than the top 2 steps of a stepladder or the top 3 rungs of an extension ladder. At that point, your balance is compromised. Now, let's say you're going to remain on the ladder to perform your work. Here are some important tips. First, always face the ladder. It's the safest way to maintain balance control. Likewise, always maintain at least 3 points of contact, that being 2 hands and 1 foot, or 1 hand and 2 feet. And never use paint trays, tie-offs, bracing, or spreaders for foot support. Now, the number 1 culprit for accidents on a ladder is when the user leans too far to one side or the other and falls. A simple way to prevent this is to follow the belt buckle rule. Quite simply, remember to always keep your belt buckle between the side rails of the ladder. Along with that, another common culprit for accidents is when users try to make ladder adjustments while still on the ladder. Call it laziness, overconfidence, or some kind of daredevil complex. None of which are lost on our buddy Paul. But sometimes workers are inclined to either move the ladder, called hopping, or extend the ladder without taking the time to climb down and do it safely from the ground. Big mistake. And when you do climb down. Don't slide. Bottom line, a ladder is a ladder, nothing more. So use it only as a ladder. For scaffolding, stay with scaffolding. Never lay a straight ladder flat across supports or across an opening to serve as a walking plank. Another way to prevent ladder accidents, by the way, is to, get this, not use them. That's right. If you do regular maintenance in an area that requires a ladder, like say you do a lot of work on feed trucks, payloaders, or other tall equipment, consider buying or building a portable stairway and platform that makes this easier, safer, and more efficient. And one final common sense tip. If you're fatigued from a busy day, or perhaps taking medication that affects your balance, just stay off ladders altogether. No job is worth the risk. Okay, we've covered a lot of material, so let's recap to prep for your test. Before you start working, assess the job and choose an OSHA-certified ladder that is designed and built for the conditions. Carefully examine your ladder, looking for damage, wear, or other factors that can affect its stability or strength. If it's in disrepair, take it out of service completely. When setting up your ladder, make sure the base and, if using an extension ladder, the upper resting point are level and secure. If your ladder isn't high enough, find another way to get the job done. Never place your ladder on unstable surfaces or tie ladders together to gain additional height. With extension ladders, remember your 3-foot minimum. That's at least 3 feet of overlap between the top and bottom sections, and 3 feet of ladder extension beyond your work height. Also, remember your 4-to-1 rule. For every 4 feet of height, position the base of the straight or extension ladder another 1 foot out away from the wall or resting surface. Always secure the top of your straight or extension ladder to keep it from falling over. And, likewise, secure your ladder in storage for the same reason. The top rungs of a ladder, 2 on an A-frame step ladder, 3 on a straight ladder, are not for climbing. When on a ladder, remember the belt buckle rule to avoid reaching too far, and never try to move or extend your ladder without climbing down to the ground. Lastly, use your ladder as a ladder and nothing more. It's not a storage shelf, a scaffold plank, a pair of stilts, whatever. Let's admit, everyone takes for granted that working with a ladder is fairly simple stuff. Who would look at a tractor ladder, for example, and think, safety first? But a few years ago, before cell phones, one Midwest farmer trying to beat the sun stopped to change the tillage equipment. In his haste, he slipped on the last muddy step, fell awkwardly on a stone, and lay motionless for hours with no way to call for help. To this day, he remains paralyzed from the waist down. Let's remember that farm safety needs to be more than a training session. It needs to be a 24/7 work habit. On a ladder or anywhere on the farm, safety is critical, even in situations that seem like an everyday task. Here's to your safety as part of enjoying a good day's work.